Do you know that some ingredients in processed foods are really bad for your health? In this episode, we're going to spotlight just a few of those so that you can make more informed choices about what you buy and what you eat and what your family eats. Welcome to the Fabulous Health Show. I'm Terry Chrisman and I am a whole foods plant-based nutritionist. And this show gives you the tools to help you obtain optimal health so that you can live happy life and age with grace and vitality. 49, and we're going to be talking about dangerous food ingredients. Tomorrow is episode 50, and it's the last episode that I'm going to do on a daily basis. After episode 50, I'm going to be going weekly. And the first one will be on Monday. I think it's the 20, forget it. I'm not even going to tell you when it is because I don't know my calendar right now. Next Monday. I'll tell you tomorrow. So this podcast goes live on Facebook and also on YouTube. So thank you so much for everybody that's already subscribed to YouTube, and I love to read your comments. Keep them coming. Directly after this show, I load the audio version of this onto all your favorite podcast platforms, such as Apple and Google and Spotify and Podcast Addict and Deezer and Spreaker and you name it. They're all up there. And to find out where yours is, just go to fabuloushealth.net, click on the podcast tab, and then you can subscribe directly from my website. Then you don't have to look for it. It's very simple. First, a disclaimer. This show is for educational and informational purposes only. The information shared today is not intended to treat or diagnose or cure any disease and should not take the place of personalized professional medical care. Please consult your primary care physician before making any changes to your diet. So yesterday I talked about fruit and how it's a really good sweet treat. In fact, it's not even a treat. It's a good food. Eat it all. Eat it all the time. Fruit has natural fructose, which helps keep blood sugars stabilize. But don't be fooled, though, by high fructose corn syrup. This is an ingredient in many processed foods, and it's not the same as the fructose in fruit. High fructose corn syrup does get processed by the liver just like the fructose in your fruit, but it doesn't have all those beneficial phytonutrients and antioxidants that your fruit does. High fructose corn syrup is made by breaking down cornstarch into its glucose molecules and then changing them with the addition of enzymes to produce the fructose. Now, the problem with high fructose corn syrup is the concentration of the fructose. Excess fructose can lead to fatty liver disease and type 2 diabetes. Now, let me be clear here. You cannot eat that much fruit. So don't think that if you eat fruit, the fructose in the fruit is going to lead to fatty liver disease. That is not going to happen. But the high fructose corn syrup is so concentrated that that's where those problems start arising. High fructose corn syrup doesn't stimulate the brain like glucose does, so the brain doesn't know that enough calories have been consumed. So we eat more of the food and we can put on weight easily. One of the foods that has so much high fructose corn syrup in it, blows my mind, is tomato ketchup. You can make your own tomato ketchup if you feel like it, or you can buy a sugar sweetened tomato ketchup or an organic non-sugar tomato ketchup. So if you are eating high fructose corn syrup, you can promote fat accumulation, particularly visceral fat. I've talked about visceral fat before. This is the fat that infiltrates and surrounds your organs. This fat is really dangerous to your health. The other thing is that fructose doesn't stimulate the insulin response, which is detrimental when it's in high concentrations because about half the sugar in high fructose corn syrup is glucose. So you're still going to get that glucose circulating throughout your body, and you don't have any way to dispose of that into the muscle tissues. So when we eat this high fructose corn syrup, the pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin, and that is why we've got that circulating blood glucose. High fructose corn syrup has been implicated in the development of metabolic syndrome, which is a precursor to diabetes and some cancers. And I've talked about metabolic syndrome before. Metabolic syndrome is when you have all the things. You've got high blood pressure, you've got high cholesterol, you've got high fasting glucose, you've got high HbA1c, you've got all those things that are metabolic abnormalities that are deleterious to your health in the long term. So we want to bring all those things down, make them normal so that you don't end up with things like diabetes, heart disease, cancers. Now, unlike eating an apple or a pear that has fructose in it, natural fructose, high fructose corn syrup offers no nutritional value to the body except for calories, empty calories, excess calories put on weight. You don't want it. Just get rid of it out of your house. Go into your cupboards right now. Turn over all your packages. Look at the ones that have high fructose corn syrup on them. Write down the product, such as marinara sauce, such as your ketchup. I don't actually know very many products that have high fructose corn syrup in them because I don't buy them. But when they're in your house, write down which ones they are, throw them in the bin, then go off to the supermarket with your shopping list of all the things you just got rid of, and then buy healthier versions of those things. Okay, what about palm oil? Palm oil is ubiquitous. It is in everything. It's used as a fat in many baked goods such as biscuits and crackers. Peanut butter, Nutella is full of palm oil. Chocolate, fried foods, pretty much most processed foods. Palm oil, like its cousin coconut oil, is a saturated fat, and it can be liquid and it can be solid. And it has about 50% saturated fat, so it's about the same amount of saturated fat as lard. Now, saturated fat can build up in our blood vessels and form fatty deposits, leading to atherosclerosis. And this is when plaques form inside the blood vessels, making the space for the blood to get through smaller and smaller. And when the blood vessels are completely blocked, it can result in heart attack and strokes, intermittent claudication, or dementia. Now, intermittent claudication, that's a big kind of word, 2 words. That's when the blood vessels in your extremities, particularly in the extremities of your legs, get blocked. And so you get pain in your calves and your legs that cannot be relieved by taking minerals such as magnesium and those minerals that help with restless legs. It's because your blood vessels are blocked, and that can be really, really dangerous because then when your blood vessels are blocked, the tissues past those blood vessels can't get any oxygen, so they start a process of necrosis. Necrosis means cell dying, and that's why people with diabetes tend to lose their feet. And when I say lose their feet, they have to get amputated because they get this necrosis of the tissue, and then they have to be amputated. And there's no going back from that. When you've got no feet, you've got no feet. So let's not deal with this by eating a healthy diet. Let's not eat tons and tons of saturated fat. And the same thing happens in your brain. When the blood vessels in your brain become blocked, you can get a stroke, or if they're itty bitty blood vessels in your brain, then parts of your brain can die. Little tiny, minute, microscopic parts of your brain can die. And then that's when you get memory loss and dementia and Alzheimer's. Okay, the worst thing about palm oil, apart from it hurting us, is that it's hurting the planet. I've been in Malaysia and seen hundreds and hundreds of miles of palm plantations that have replaced natural forest. They've displaced all the animals, they've displaced all the indigenous population, and they are ruining the world. So this is happening all over the world because of our incessant desire for palm oil in products. My advice and my wish for you is not to buy products with palm oil, even if it says sustainable, because people, I don't believe that. Let's move on to nitrates and nitrites. Some natural foods like green leafy vegetables contain nitrates, and these compounds, which are made from nitrogen and oxygen, are anti-cancerous and good for our health. They get converted into nitric oxide, I can't talk today, as usual. They get converted into nitric oxide, which helps dilate our blood vessels and is really good for heart health. So even if you've got a little bit of atherosclerosis, you can eat these leafy green vegetables and it'll help open up those blood vessels, and then that'll start improving your health. However, nitrates that are found in cured and processed meats get broken down in the gut to nitrites, not nitric oxide. These compounds, nitrites, can cause cancer, pregnancy complications, and blue baby syndrome. That's when you get a baby who doesn't get enough oxygen to its tissues when it gets born. In fact, the World Health Organization has released a position statement labeling processed meat such as ham, deli meat, bacon, hot dogs, and salami as a class 1 carcinogen, just like smoking, a class 1 carcinogen because of the nitrite compounds in those foods. All those processed deli meats, get rid of them out of your diet ASAP. What about MSG? MSG stands for monosodium glutamate. It's a flavor enhancer, and it's used usually in Chinese foods, canned veggie soups, and processed meats. Again, processed meats. MSG has been reported to cause headaches, chest pain, tingling and burning, heart palpitations. But although some of these internet websites claim that MSG causes asthma, I did some scientific research and found a Cochrane review. Now, a Cochrane review is the highest quality scientific literature available, and they suggest that there's not enough evidence to make this claim that MSG causes asthma. However, if you experience breathing difficulties or any of those ailments I mentioned before, when you have products containing MSG, don't eat them, stop eating them, don't buy them, don't put them in your body, even though a scientific paper says that there's not enough evidence to suggest that MSG might cause asthma. If it's giving you asthma, don't eat it and see your doctor, because you need to seek medical attention if ever you eat something that restricts your breathing. This could be an emergency situation. Okay, what about aspartame? Aspartame is an artificial sweetener found in fizzy drinks and sugar-free processed foods, including chewing gum. It's 200 times more sweet than glucose. It's got a cousin, sucralose, which is another artificial sweetener made from sucrose, and it's 600 times sweeter than glucose. Now, many studies have linked artificial sweeteners to serious health complications, including the worst, cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, seizures, stroke, dementia, as well as intestinal dysbiosis, mood disorders, headaches, and migraines. Now, aspartame doesn't trigger the insulin response in the same way that sugar does. It leads to higher blood glucose and then the potential development for diabetes. In addition, artificial sweeteners elicit different brain responses than eating sugar. Now, this ingredient requires its own podcast. There is so much more information that I want to give to you, but I just don't have the time today. So let me do a ton more research, and then I'll bring you another podcast just on the effects of aspartame. And stay tuned for that in the future. Now, my advice to you is, in the meantime, stay away from those chemical-laden, artificial sweetened sodas and artificial processed food products. So I hope today's podcast was informational to you and it was helpful to you. I'd love to read your comments. Please go to fabuloushealth.net for the whole range of these podcasts. You'll get episode 1 to episode 49, and there you can also find my fabulous new online course. It's called The Quick Road to Fabulous Weight Loss, and you'll get 25% off up until the end of November 2021 just by using the code podcast in checkout. So tomorrow is episode 50. Yay! Episode 50 is the last daily episode I'm going to do. After that, we're going to go weekly, and we're going to talk about how to slow down the aging process. Tomorrow, it's not rocket science, people, but it's really interesting the amount of people that don't do these things. So I will see you tomorrow for episode 50. Thank you so much for watching, and you have a fabulous day.